Imagine the situation. You're a knight, happily in your manor, getting on with your general business, and a letter arrives from the King of England. The King says, we're going to war with France. I want you there shortly because you've got to fight for me. What do you do? How do you get there? How do you organise things? Let's find out. Fighting battles today involves a huge amount of organisation. There are armies of people looking after logistics just to keep a certain number of people in the field. And a knight in armour was the fighting point, if you like, with a whole retinue of people behind him. Logistics would have been harder though. There's parchment and writing involved. There's no internet. There's no easy connection or communication with people. You must have ordered things months in advance and said, I need the food there in July. Well, when in July and exactly where? But it happened, and it was organised, and battles were fought on huge scales. So they must have had an infrastructure that would allow that to actually happen. One of the things that's easy for people to forget is that a knight doesn't travel on his own. A knight is the head of a household, and that household consists of retainers of all sorts of different types. You don't just have your war horse, you have the people to look after your war horse. You don't just have transportation horses, you have the people to look after the transportation horses. You have cooks, you have squires, you have your fellow soldiers as well, because no knight would have fought on their own. They would have had people either side, literally wingmen. You'd have also had archers supporting you. You'd have probably had men-at-arms as well, armed with polearms. That's a lot of people. And I would imagine that those people also had followers, wives, children potentially coming along. There might also be a whole train of people bringing other kit just in case you wanted to buy it, let alone your supplies, your wine, your food, your tents. There's an awful lot of stuff, and all of it has got to be carried by men, horses, or wagons. One of the things that hasn't changed throughout history is that an army marches on its stomach. In fact, battles have been won and lost because one side is hungry and the other side isn't. There are stories of kings ordering merchants to go and feed their armies, but they had to use reduced prices, which of course really angered the merchants. And I imagine a lot of merchants didn't actually make it to the army to give them the food. But of course it pleased the men. And then other kings said, actually, we need more food. So they bring in the merchants and say, charge what you like. And the merchants, being merchants, realizing they've got a captive audience, they've literally got an army of hungry men in front of them, charged excess money. So eventually you get to the situation where an army is marching into enemy territory, and they're not going to be able to be supplied by merchants in the same way. So they have to resort to pillaging and looting the local area. Now, that might not be very good for hearts and minds, but it is good for the belly. So you can imagine people going out scouting for the army, kind of checking for the enemy, half an eye on the enemy and half an eye on those fat chickens in the farmyard over there. It's said that a medieval army on the march created a swathe of destruction through the countryside 10 miles wide. I can believe that, because people marching, wearing heavy armour, travelling to war, they're going to consume a lot of calories. And there isn't that much calorific value in one local area at a time. So it probably would have been completely destroyed by that passing army. I've travelled to the continent with my horses several times. I've jousted at Agincourt, I've fought mock battles in Germany, and I've jousted in the Low Countries in tournaments. So I'm quite aware of the difficulties and complexity of travelling horses today, let alone back in the medieval period. For a start, you have to have a vet certify that your horse is safe. You have to have import and then export papers, because you've got to actually export your horse from this country and then import it again, which is a bit weird, but that's how the system works. You've also got to have regular rest stops, because a horse's welfare has to be looked after. Now imagine the situation in the medieval period. You don't really have a road network of the same kind of consistency. There's no tarmac, there's probably old Roman roads that you're going down. You're probably walking and riding as well. And when you get to the coast, that journey will have taken you, maybe you can go 20 miles in a day, 25 miles in a day, but everybody's got to get organised, everything's got to be packed up on carts, on sumpter horses, on ponies. Your destrier is going to be led as well, because you don't want to ride your destrier all the way on the journey. You ride a different horse for the actual journey itself. And you get to the coast with all of these people, all of these noises. Everybody's come from different areas, gathered to this one place where the king and his organisation, they have gathered together 700 transport ships to take you across the channel to go and fight in France. 700 ships. Each of them is going to take dozens of horses and hundreds of men. Behind me is a horse box with a modern ramp on it, and horses have to be trained to go up that ramp. They don't like it straight away. So how much more difficult would it be to get a war horse onto a boat? Well, we see this on the Bayeux Tapestry. They put slings around them and winched them on. So the slight indignity for a wild war horse to actually have straps put around its belly and winched up and put on a boat. I imagine it was quite a scene, because war horses are very physical things. They're stallions. They don't like each other. They'll often fight against each other. When a horse is frightened, a horse will dung and its poo will go everywhere. So you have all these horses gathered, the stallions, there'll be some non-stallions, geldings, mares, all sorts, big ones, small ones, all pooing everywhere, all frightened, lots of noise, some of them being winched onto the ships. The ships would be absolutely covered in horse poo as well, and there'd be spittle and sweat and men swearing and all sorts of things going on. All of this chaos to get your horses onto a boat. You've not left England yet. All of that effort, all of that noise, all of that chaos, and not a single blow has yet been struck in anger. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Don't forget to use that notification button, and we'll see you next time.